You open your eyes. It's cold, not turn up the thermostat cold. Cold in a way that has weight to it. It presses against your skin like a hand. You slept on the ground, on a pile of animal hides and dried grass, inside a rough shelter of wood and branches. Your back hurts, your neck hurts. This is just normal. You don't shower. There is no shower. There is no soap. If it rained recently, you might splash water on your face from a stream. You don't brush your teeth. Not with a brush, not with paste, nothing. Your teeth will slowly wear down from the grit in your food, and you might lose a few to infection before you're 40, but right now, you just run your tongue over them and move on. And here's the thing about the bathroom situation that nobody likes to talk about. You go outside, away from camp, because even without any formal education, humans understood that you do not go near where you sleep and eat. You find a spot in the bushes, you use leaves, soft grass, maybe smooth stones if you're somewhere dry. And that's it. No privacy, not much dignity, but you figure it out. What's interesting is that this instinct to move away from waste is deeply wired. Even infants in cultures with no modern plumbing show discomfort at being near their own waste. It's not just culture, it's biology. Your body knows. Now it's time to eat, except there's nothing ready, there's no pantry, there's no breakfast. You eat when you find food, and you start looking first thing in the morning because hunger is not a minor inconvenience here. It's a serious problem. You step into the forest or the grassland, and the first question you face is, what here is safe? Because this is a genuinely hard question. There are berries that look almost identical to each other. One will give you energy, one will give you violent cramps, and potentially kill a child in your group. How do you know the difference? The answer is, you were taught. From the time you could walk, the older people in your group were pointing at things and saying, in whatever language your group used, that yes, that no, the knowledge of your territory, what grows here, what's safe in summer versus winter, what becomes toxic when unripe. That knowledge was your most valuable inheritance, more valuable than any object. It lived inside the minds of the elders, and losing an elder wasn't just sad, it was genuinely dangerous. But let's say you're in new territory. Maybe your group moved. You use observation. You watch what animals eat. Not a perfect method, since some animals can handle toxins we can't, but it's a starting point. You use your senses. Does it smell rotten, fermented, wrong? Does the plant have milky sap, a bitter taste, tiny hairs? You go slow, you try a small amount and wait. If nothing bad happens in a few hours, you try more. It's methodical in a way that feels almost scientific. Plants that are generally reliable across most environments, berries that birds eat, roots and tubers, high in starch, filling, nuts, eggs, fungi, though mushrooms are one of the most dangerous gambles you can take without specific knowledge. And across almost every early human culture, honey, if you're brave enough to deal with what's guarding it. Here's the thing movies get wrong about early humans hunting. It wasn't two guys with spears heroically charging a mammoth. That happened occasionally, but most hunting looked nothing like that. Most hunting was patient, methodical, and honestly kind of exhausting. The most effective technique for early humans wasn't strength, it was persistence. We call it persistence hunting, and humans are uniquely built for it. You find an animal, a deer, an antelope, something mid-sized, and you simply follow it, not sprint after it, walk after it, steadily, relentlessly, in the heat of the day when most animals have to stop and pant to cool down. Humans sweat. We're one of the only animals that cools this efficiently, so you just keep going, hour after hour. The animal runs, stops. You walk, you track the footprints, the disturbed grass, the droppings. And eventually, after 2, 3, sometimes 5 hours, the animal is so exhausted it can barely stand. You walk up to it, and then you use your spear, your stone blade, or even a rock. The hunt isn't dramatic. It's a war of attrition, and you win it with your lungs. Other methods? Traps. Deadfall traps. Heavy stones balanced over bait that crush the animal when it feeds. Snares made from plant fiber twisted into cordage, looped around animal trails. Pit traps dug into the ground and covered with branches. Driving animals off cliffs or into water where they're easier to kill. Working in groups to herd prey into a narrow space. You also fish. A sharpened stick thrust quickly into shallow water. Woven grass baskets that act as traps in streams. Bone hooks with plant fiber line. Fishing is actually one of the most calorie-efficient ways to get protein. The energy you spend versus the energy you get back is a great trade. And here's something important. You don't waste anything. When you make a kill, you eat the organs first, the liver, the heart, the kidneys, because your body craves those nutrients and they spoil fastest. You crack the bones for the marrow inside. You stretch the hide out to dry. You're not being frugal, you're being rational. This animal might be the biggest meal your group has in a week. When an animal is killed and skinned, the hide has to be processed. Otherwise it rots, dries stiff as a board, and becomes useless. The process is called tanning, and before chemicals, humans did it with brain matter, specifically the brain of the animal you just killed. Almost every animal has just enough brain to tan its own hide, a fact so consistently useful that it's basically a rule. You work the brain material into the wet skin over and over, stretching it, softening it. Then you smoke it over fire, which seals in the oils and prevents it from stiffening when it gets wet again. What you end up with is leather. Soft, flexible, durable leather. You cut it with a stone blade and punch holes with a bone awl, a pointed bone tool. Then thread strips of hide or twisted plant fiber through the holes like a very rough stitch. Your clothes are not beautiful. They're not comfortable in the way a cotton t-shirt is comfortable, but they keep the wind and rain off your skin, and in winter, they keep you alive. In warmer climates, people wore very little. In colder regions, especially during ice ages, clothing was layered and carefully constructed. Hoods, boots, layered chest coverings. Bad clothing in a brutal winter wasn't uncomfortable. It was fatal. At night, the world becomes a different place. Predators are more active, the temperature drops. Shelter isn't just comfort, it's the difference between sleeping and not sleeping. And a person who can't sleep eventually can't function, can't hunt, can't think clearly. Your shelter might be a natural cave if you're lucky enough to be near one. And caves were used for tens of thousands of years. But for many groups, you build. A simple lean-to is branches propped against a tree or a large rock, layered with smaller branches and leaves for insulation and water shedding. A more permanent structure is a frame of longer poles lashed together at the top, covered with hides or bark, thick walls of branches packed with mud and grass. You don't need it to be beautiful. You need it to block the wind, keep the rain out, and trap body heat. 4 people sleeping close together in a small space generate a remarkable amount of warmth. Your group doesn't always stay in one place. Many early humans were semi-nomadic, following animals seasonally and knowing which areas had food in which months. Your shelter might be rebuilt every few weeks. This is normal. Home isn't a fixed address. Home is wherever the fire is. Someone in your group gets sick. Maybe it's you. Fever, chills, stomach pain. There is no doctor. There is no pharmacy. There is, however, knowledge. Every human group throughout history has developed a pharmacopoeia, a collection of plants that have medicinal properties. Willow bark, which contains a compound related to aspirin, was used to reduce fever and pain in cultures across multiple continents independently. Certain plants have genuine antibacterial properties. Others help with digestion, with pain, with inflammation. This knowledge, like food knowledge, was accumulated over generations through trial and terrible error, and it was passed down by the healers and elders of the group. Some of what they did worked, some of it didn't. There was no way to know which was which with certainty. You treat the sick person with what you have: warmth, rest, water, whatever plant remedies your group knows. And then you wait. Sometimes they recover, sometimes they don't. Injuries are arguably a bigger risk than illness. A broken leg doesn't kill you immediately, but if you can't walk, you can't contribute, you can't hunt, you can't run from danger. You become a burden on the group. Archaeological evidence shows that early humans did care for injured members. We've found skeletons with healed breaks that required weeks of immobility, meaning someone was fed and protected while they recovered. The instinct to care for each other is ancient. It predates civilization by a long, long time. You are not alone. Nobody survives alone. That is perhaps the single most important thing to understand about pre-civilization life. The lone wolf in Hollywood movies would be dead within a season. Your group is somewhere between 15 and 50 people. Extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, children who aren't biologically yours, but who you treat as your own. This is your entire social world. These people are your protection, your food security, your emotional support, your entire civilization. Roles aren't rigid, but they're real. People who are strong and fast hunt. People who are observant and knowledgeable gather and identify plants. Older people who can no longer keep pace on a hunt become the teachers, the storytellers, the holders of memory. Children contribute earlier than modern children do. By age 7 or 8, a child in a hunter-gatherer group is helping with real tasks. Not because childhood isn't valued, but because learning by doing is how knowledge transfers. The social dynamics are intense. You spend every single day with the same 20 to 40 people. There are disagreements, grudges, attractions, alliances. But there's also something else, a level of interdependence that modern people almost never experience. When you share your kill with someone, you're not being generous, you're investing. Because next week, when they find the fruit trees, they'll bring you back a share. The group functions on reciprocity. It has to. Children are precious and vulnerable. Infant mortality is high. Somewhere between 30 and 50% of children don't survive to age 5. This shapes everything about how children are treated. They're rarely put down. They're carried constantly. They sleep with adults. They're breastfed for years, not months. Not because of philosophy, because of survival. The immune boost, the nutritional support, the physical closeness that reduces cold exposure. All of it matters when medicine doesn't exist. The bones don't lie. Early humans fought each other, not constantly, but yes, and the weapons that started as hunting tools became something more. The spear came first. The oldest we've found is 400,000 years old, shaped and balanced like a javelin. Then the atlatl, a throwing board that acts as a mechanical lever, nearly tripling your range and doubling your impact force. Then the bow, around 65,000 years ago, faster, quieter, harder to see coming. Each step made killing something you could do from farther away. What did people fight over? Survival resources. A river with reliable fish, a sheltered valley, a dense hunting ground. These weren't abstract borders. Losing access to them could mean your group didn't make it through winter. They also fought over people, specifically to maintain genetic diversity in small groups, and over revenge, which functioned as deterrence. A group that absorbed violence without responding invited more of it. The logic hasn't changed much. Conflict at this scale looked like ambush, not open battle. You found people when they were separated or sleeping, used surprise and terrain, and tried to end it fast, because every person you lost was someone your group needed. The violence was real, strategic, and human. So was the peace. For every site showing signs of massacre, there are many more showing trade and intermarriage between groups. The capacity for both lived in the same body, around the same fire. It still does. You've probably heard that early humans lived to about 35. That's true, and deeply misleading at the same time. Let me explain. When we say the average life expectancy was 35, that average is dragged down enormously by infant and child mortality. If you died as a baby, and many did, you bring that average way down. But if you survived childhood, if you made it to age 15, your odds improved dramatically. Many people in prehistoric times lived into their 50s, 60s, and occasionally beyond. We have skeletal remains of individuals estimated to be 60+ years old from the Paleolithic period. So the question isn't, how long did humans live? The question is, what killed them? Infections were the great equalizer, a cut that gets infected, a tooth abscess that spreads, pneumonia after a cold winter. Without antibiotics, infections that modern medicine treats in 3 days could kill a healthy adult in 2 weeks. Childbirth was extraordinarily dangerous for women. Without the ability to perform cesarean sections, obstructed labor was often fatal for both mother and child. Injuries, falls, animal attacks, accidents during hunting were common and often fatal if they were serious. A compound fracture that breaks through skin in a world without surgery and antibiotics is essentially a death sentence. Starvation and exposure killed people during hard seasons. Drowning, snake bites, and occasionally violence from animals and yes, from other people. But here's what you almost certainly did not die from: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, most cancers, obesity-related illness. The chronic diseases that are the top killers in the modern world barely existed. Your diet was varied, unprocessed, low in sugar. You walked 10 to 15 kilometers a day as a baseline. You never sat at a desk for 8 hours. Your body was doing exactly what it was designed to do. The trade-off was brutal. You might die of a tooth infection at 32, but if you didn't, your heart was probably fine. So here we are. You've spent the day in that world. You woke up cold on the ground. You found your own food. You hunted or helped. You kept the fire. You treated the sick with what you had. You watched over the children. You kept one eye on the tree line. And at night, gathered around that fire with the people you know better than anyone else on earth. The same faces you've seen every day of your life. You talked. You told stories. You laughed. Because humans have always done that. In every culture, in every era, in every language, we sit around the fire and we tell each other what happened and what it meant and what comes next. That part hasn't changed. That's the part that is still you. The body you have right now was built for that world. The instincts that kick in when you're afraid, the reason food that's high in fat and sugar feels irresistible, the reason you sleep better when you feel safe and surrounded by people you trust, all of it is older than language. All of it was shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of exactly this: waking up, figuring out how to survive the day, and doing it again tomorrow. We built civilization. We built medicine and agriculture and cities and the internet and refrigerators that talk. We fixed a lot of the ways that world tried to kill us. But we are still, at our core, the same animal that crossed those plains, that crouched by that stream, that looked up at the exact same stars you can see tonight. And I think there's something worth knowing about that. Something worth sitting with.